What's up, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Welcome back into the Play the Fight Song College Football Show. Another college football week is upon us, and there's some good games in the Week 10 slate. We're going to preview 5 main ones tonight, talk a little bit on the college football playoff and the conference championship schedule, because Jake sent a text in earlier this afternoon and wants to break this down because there are some dates out there that people maybe don't realize. I also believe we get college football playoff rankings this week, same time as the election. So you either choose stupid, boring election coverage or the college football playoff rankings. Choose wisely. But the boys are all here. Reese sounds like a 6 a.m. radio caller. Reese, let the people know.
First time caller. Here we go.
Yep. A little background music there from the Bluetooth headphones. But JP's here tonight. JP, how we doing? Ready to break down Week 10?
Great. I got to be on the mute button fast and heavy here. I got a dog mowing on a bone the size of his noggin. I'm doing great, though. Yeah, been a good week, busy week and a half. Excited for the slate. I think there's some games here that are going to be a little more important than you think here. But yes, dog is just
somebody give that guy give him a peanut butter lick pad or something. Damn,
a peanut butter lick pad?
Yeah, you freeze it and then you throw it on the floor and they lick it. But
thank you. Okay, he knows what I'm talking
this
about.
one eats those.
No, I mean, Reese might actually use that as well. I know he's not a dog, but Reese and the fan of peanut butter he is, Reese would also participate in peanut butter lick pad. But all right, with that, let's go into the college football playoff conversation to lead off tonight's episode before we get into game-by-game previews. Jake, tell the people about what you were talking about. Why is the schedule interesting for conference championship, and where are you sitting? Obviously, the Clones are projected to be in the college football playoff this year.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we've been talking about the 12-team playoff, who's going to get in, like who maybe wants the bye or who doesn't want to make their conference title and all that stuff. And so I was just like, I don't think we've talked enough about like the actual dates from when conference championship starts to the first round all the way till the quarterfinals and then the championship game. Obviously, championship game is January 20th, so we're going an extra 2 weeks into the college football season, which is great for us as podcasters and just fans in general. But here's the interesting part. It's because obviously the talk right now, and we're going to pick up on it before it's really debated probably in the last couple of weeks, is do you want to make your conference championship? Do you want to play in that conference championship game? Because, for instance, all the conference championship games are on December 7th. The first round, not just, conference championship buys. The first round's not until December 20th and 21st. 1 on a Friday, 3 on a Saturday. So if you lose the conference championship game, you still pretty much assuming have a good 2 weeks. Like you get a bye week in between then. If you win your conference title, you don't play for a good month. And we've all had that debate. Like, is it worth getting a month off? Do you even want to play in the title game and then maybe get to the first round? So say somebody, say Georgia loses one more, they will get conference championship week off December 7th, and then they'll play December 20th. So like either way, it feels like you probably have a 3-week, 4-week span of preparation, except for assuming most conference championship losers get into the playoff, because then they have the shortest turnaround in going in for 2 weeks. But 2 weeks to me still feels like a good amount of time. Like I think I'm okay playing a conference title, waiting a week, and then playing the following. And also the last thing, that disparity between first round and the second round for the first 4 buys, you actually get, I believe it's 9 days, because they play the first 4 or the whatever you want to call those. The first 4 bye games are on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, which is a good, I don't
Tuesday,
know.
Wednesday.
I believe it's the dates. So yeah, you're going Friday, Saturday, and then you get a week, and then you get 3 extra days. So there's plenty of time to have a bye week turnaround if you're playing in that first round game. I just thought it was really interesting looking at that, because there's going to be a lot of talk on like what round do you want to play in, basically.
It's probably a conversation you can have team by team too, because some teams are pretty good off buys. Some coaches prepare well off buys. Some teams don't bounce back as well off of a bye week. And I think in the MLB playoffs, In the playoffs of pro leagues, it's way more common. Obviously, it will become common in college football, but we've had that conversation. Like, is it beneficial to get a wild card spot, stay in your groove, and keep building rather than have that dead week and then you almost are getting back into the swing of things? Like, there's that first, well, they've been off for a week, so
yeah,
slow.
I think it's more based on the sport. Like, I feel like college football teams that come off buys, and like I know this is extended period of time, that affects them less, especially if you're building to that kind of game. Like, you might be a little rusty and like have to hang on for a couple of drives just to hit a groove. But I also think the emotion and the weight of that game will cause the same problem, whether you're off a bye or playing 4 weeks later or right away.
Reese, any thoughts from the morning caller first before we go back to Jake?
No, you're good.
I was just going to say, you think about this, and you want to have we can have this conversation as fans, but in the player shoes, you want to play football games. Like, they're not going and trying to, like, oh, we want to lose this game because we want to have an extra week off, or we want to, have this, like, you guys are going to go play and they're going to bust their ass off. So, like, as fans, we can have, these kind of conversations, but like these coaches, they could, I think in the NFL, it's a little bit, having that bye week of extra time, because coaches, I think at the next level are just a little bit, there's a reason why they're in the NFL. A little bit smarter. They can scheme up a little bit more of a game plan too than, you guys in the NCAA. It also depends too, Ohio State play maybe Boise, as that, whoever the hell that would be. I think like that different little like recruiting for them, or game planning for them might be a little bit easier compared to if I'm Ohio State at the 4 and I got a game plan for Oregon or Iowa State or something, like a little more like having that, I think extra week, whatever, like that can be big, because if you're trying a new game plan, whatever that is, you get that extra week to, Will Howard's going to do something different this week than we've had him do all year, or you're working on a new formation, or defensively, you're able to get your guy a little bit more exposure. You let a guy go play against like have your scout QB be more like a Shedeur Sanders. You get a guy who's going to act like a Travis Hunter or whatever. Like, you can prepare more for like that kind of stuff. I think like that's where the one big positive I think would be for, having extra time, is just getting your guys extra time for game planning or whatever it might be. But again, I think if you're the athletes in this game and you're the coaches in this game, you could give a shit like what your seating is. You're going to go in there, you're just going to try to win football games is your end goal.
Fair enough.
Reese is right in like coaches could care less. They're going to just play the game ahead and then just win. But it's just kind of funny to think like, say again, I'll just use Georgia for example. They keep winning all of these football games. They win the conference title, and now it's like, oh shit, we don't play for another month. Then it's like, man, we have like all this time, which again, the winter portal window is going to be open. So maybe teams like Georgia are pretty excited because they'll use that to their advantage, being on the recruiting trail. They're going to stay ahead of that kind of stuff. Another thing that came to mind is that we might see in this playoff, and we saw it a little bit in the 4 team. It is these teams who come off a month of not playing, because even in the 4 team, it was a month between the first 2 games.
Semi-final. Yep.
Yeah, your semifinal from the conference championship games. And we saw a decent amount of upsets. Like, that's usually where your upsets happen. Like, how many title games have we seen the following week where, like, obviously Georgia TCU comes to mind where they just beat on them, but TCU has a month to prepare. They get some time. They come ready for Michigan. Maybe Michigan loses that momentum after winning the Big Ten title, after beating Ohio State that year. I feel like the upsets are going to happen in those first 4 buys when a team comes off of just playing 10 days ago. They're feeling fresh. 10 days feels like plenty of time to get ready, but they also just had a short amount of time where they played football. They're back into a groove. They haven't been off for a month. That's what at least came to my mind.
You're talking point spread upsets, not number upsets and seeding upsets, correct? Because we're going to go down that path again. There's going to be there's going to be a 10 beat a 6 or whatever. We're going to be like, oh, that's Georgia beating
the 5 beating a 4.
Somebody. Yeah.
Georgia beating a Big 12 team. No, yes, you're correct. Point spreads.
Now we're on the same page.
That's a fair way to put it. I do want to transfer this conversation to kind of along the lines of conference championships of what we're talking about. I don't know if you guys saw the clip that's going around, but Oregon could miss the Big Ten title at 12-0. Do you guys know that?
if Penn State wins and Indiana
If
wins.
Penn State wins and Indiana beats Ohio State.
What is that tiebreaker number? Like 7?
It's like scoring margin. It's off scoring margin of common opponents where Oregon only beat Ohio State by 1. And assuming Indiana or Penn State
wins by
more than 1, then they would have the tiebreaker over Oregon to get in, and they're all 3 undefeated. So Oregon would miss the Big Ten title game. I mean, in that assumption, you have to assume all 3 get in, or the Big Ten title loser doesn't get in.
Easy.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
It could get real greasy right there. But that would be a welcome to the Big Ten moment for Oregon, because the back half of their schedule is absolutely brutal.
You wouldn't argue like the 3 undefeateds getting in, Parks. It would be, does Ohio State get in over maybe a second Big 12 team or a second, third ACC team, or
but they all 3 wouldn't be undefeated because somebody's got to lose that title game. So would they say, Indiana, that you didn't play enough tough games, but Ohio State did, whatever they want to do. They'll probably throw an SEC 7 seed in there.
Are we this college football ranking show? I know it's built for TV and whatnot, but are they ranking them based on resume right now, or are they're going to do it on resume and ranking? They're not going to try and do.
Are you talking next week?
Yeah, like
I would assume so.
Who they're going to think?
It's not a power ratings, I think.
Yeah, it's not. But I'm saying it's not going to be.
Iowa State's not going to be the 4. There will be.
Yes. It will be just rankings. It's not going to be like the seeding.
They're not going to focus on the rankings. Yeah. They're going to reveal the rankings, and then they're going to show you what the field looks like, and then they're going to be like, well, actually, this would be here, and that would like.
They'll do that, yes. Yeah. But Iowa State, say they win this weekend, Iowa State will still be probably 10th, 9th,
8, 9, 10, somewhere in there.
They'll show that projection. Will be like Iowa State's a 4 seed.
I have a fun projection for you for the 12 seeds all the way through from hailwestvirginia.com. So this is a West Virginia perspective. 1, Oregon, overall number 1 seed, winning the Big Ten. 2, Georgia, the SEC champ. 3, BYU, the Big 12 champ. 4, Pitt, the ACC champion. 5, Texas as an at-large bid. Penn State as an at-large bid. Indiana as an at-large bid. Notre Dame as an at-large. Boise State as the 9, as the Mountain West champion and the G5 representative. A&M as the at-large. Iowa State as an at-large. And Miami as an at-large.
Where's this guy get his weed? I need to know his guy.
I mean,
how many did they had? They had 3 SEC. He had 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, 1 G5, 3 Big 10.
Correct.
I mean that'd be.
I mean, if
obviously,
there's a year
it
to
sounds
go absolutely
better to
wild,
me.
though,
But
wouldn't it be this year when everything is?
It does. Yeah, it does really feel like that's not entirely
fun.
Crazy.
It's not that crazy, but it's Pitt with as a 7.5 point dog on the road this weekend, and then have to beat Miami.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
They got to win the game.
It's a shocker there.
I like it. I think it's a little bit of a great. I like Boise State in there at the 9. I wonder.
Boise State the 9 is fun. Boise State, Notre Dame, first round.
We could. Boise State being the 9 is interesting. No, absolutely
they lost
not.
to Oregon by what, 3?
3.
And they would be the undefeated number 1 overall seed. It doesn't say anywhere that the group of 5 representative needs to be the 12. And if you're in a situation where I don't think Miami would be your 12 there, but like the second Big 12 team could be your 12, or the second ACC.
Yeah. Well,
like Pitt,
think about it.
Someone like that, or Notre Dame would be, because if
think about the AP poll, like where's Boise's at 15 right now. They still have 5 games left, 5, I think, and they got to play a conference title. Like they keep winning, they keep winning by a lot. Those Power 4 schools are going to keep beating each other. Like, why wouldn't they be ranked 9th or 10th? I think you can at the end of the year
pencil them in at 12, but I don't think it's necessarily an end all be all that they are 12. Because are you like, why would eye test at that point in time, or are you now like resume?
A little bit of both.
Their resume is not great, but it's not bad necessarily. They need UNLV to run the table, and they need Oregon to keep winning.
Well, what if Georgia goes and they like lose in time and they have 2 losses? I know we know Georgia is better than Boise State, but I mean, couldn't
the
you
resume
argue
would
the Boise
be better
at like
still.
a 10 and the Georgia at like 11?
It's kind of like like I think like
put a 2-loss team that low, but you can't put it in that high.
Like Cannell on Cover 3 kind of makes this argument all the time, or maybe for Nelly, it doesn't matter. But they basically say, like, Indiana, why can't Indiana be 7 until proven wrong? Like, they are undefeated. Put them there, and if they'll lose, they'll lose.
Yeah.
Like, same thing with Boise State. If they're one of probably 5 teams at the end of the year with 1 loss, and that came in the second week of the season, why the hell not? They couldn't be 8 or 9.
The last thought I have on this is everybody in here ranks everybody differently. So like we've never posted like our individual rankings out there, the top 30s that we put out, like us 4, we just put out our consensus one. We all rank teams so differently, right? Like some of us are doing just resume right now based. Some of us are doing, well, a little bit of resume, but we also think this team is more deserving and better, even with a loss. And then some people do it more like, I just think this team is better. Like it's scrambled everywhere. So now you're putting it in a committee's eyes with 12 slots to fill in a bigger conferences. And then I can think they can say blind resume, but I think they know who they're looking at, right? Like if you slid a piece of paper in front of me that was Boise State and the other one was a 2-loss Georgia, I'm thinking I have a pretty good idea of who's who, in my opinion. Like if you're watching the games, like they claim,
we got to do the game again where you ask us, like who ranked, who do you think ranked this spot?
We'll do it next week.
That was
unless the slate's like loaded, but I thought that was interesting because it's just fun to see. Because
we should do that. No, we should do that. Like, who has for like college football projections? Like, who has this team as the 4? Like, who has this guy as a 4 seed? Who has this guy as a 7 seed? Or whatever.
All right. With that, let's wrap up the play-up conversation with a more fun way to end the segment. If Boise State loses, because their last 4 games are San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, they'll be favored in all 4. If they were to lose one of those games, who's your G5 rep? Because you got to think about
I heard a lot of Louisiana talk last night.
You probably should if they're 11-1 as an S or a Sun Belt champ.
We know how the Sun Belt works. They won't be right.
If Memphis wins out, I still think you can get.
I'll tell you. Doesn't Memphis have 1 day undefeated?
Tulane.
I like Tulane. I had Tulane as my pick preseason.
Even though they have 2 to Oklahoma doesn't look great. That Oklahoma loss, I know it was Oklahoma.
It's looking worse week by week
on the road, guys.
But
yeah,
I get it.
Just played Kansas State week before.
I know, and they should have actually won that game. They should have legitimately.
It's time to smell the roses and start telling your kids about a playoff Army bound Black Knights.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably Army.
Army could be. I feel like it's tough to say Memphis Reese because of the way they got beat by Navy, who then gets dismantled by Notre Dame. Like that's now starting to look worse, or it only goes south from there, and the way they can't stop a runny nose. Yeah, but it opens up a lot of possibilities for some G5 schools if Boise drops one of these.
Tulane will probably be 9-2 going into the last week of the year when they play. I believe they played Memphis last week of the year. Army will most likely be, I think, 10-1 going into last week to play Navy. I think they'll lose, or they'll beat Air Force. They'll beat North Texas.
Lose Notre Dame, you said that too lightly, bro.
I'm just saying.
You said that too lightly. That's not. They're not. That's just a straight up lie.
Tulane panned them last week.
No, they didn't.
They not?
No.
What was the score?
Like it was 31-10. Yeah, it was probably that.
And they came back.
Yes. Bastard.
Okay.
Yeah, the North Texas
we're hanging on to this North Texas thing a little too long.
It's a top 3 offense in college football. Of course I am. Top 3.
We can't. I really hope Boise doesn't lose. I just don't think anybody else in the G5 right now has the athletes to compete in an actual game like Boise can.
North Texas got beat by Tulane last week, 45-37.
I mean, they pushed. It was an 8-point spread.
That's what I'm saying.
Stop.
They can't get it.
Just get one stop.
They can't get it, but they can score it. It doesn't matter. They don't need to stop.
God forbid. I thought Tulane maybe took the brakes off when they were up 31-10. So
no. And now you can't sleep on Chandler Morris and DT Sheffield. Some of the best in the country right there. Number 3 offense overall in college football. Shout out North Texas. But all right, that is our playoff talk for this week and conference championship talk. Let's move into previews because we got 5 games to cover. A couple of them are going to be lighter. Let's start in Jacksonville, Everbank Stadium, which was just announced today that game will not happen there in 2 years. It will happen somewhere else. No. It'll happen at a neutral site still while they change things at Everbank, but it will not be hosted on campus by either one. Still, they're still playing it at a neutral site, which people are pissed about. But a neutral site game between Florida and Georgia, 16.5-point favorite. The Dogs are. Jake, tell us about this game.
Yeah, I think first of all, just get out of that shitty town. We don't need to be playing in that stadium anymore. But let's talk the actual football game. This is, a lot of people. I've been seeing some national media people saying this one's going to be a blowout. I think Feinbaum said, Florida has no chance, and he could very well be right. Florida hasn't beaten anybody above 500 yet. Samford, Mississippi State, Kentucky, like the wins aren't great. UCF, but this is like DJ Lagway's first prime time start. And if you're a college football fan, I think that's something to be excited about. Now, how does he do against this Georgia defense? We'll have to wait and find out. Montrell Johnson didn't play last week against Kentucky, or 2 weeks ago, I should say. Not sure what the status is on him. I look at a guy like Elijah Badger, the wide receiver transfer from Arizona State. Got to create some explosive plays if they want to keep this game entertaining. Georgia, at some very, very small spots, like the Alabama first half, has shown the ability to give up explosive plays. I would just love to see how DJ kind of responds, how he handles things against this football team. The one thing I want to see from Georgia is just, can their defense, that D-line, front seven in particular, can it just continue to get better and dominate? Like, unless they're just basically taken away by Lagway's ability to use his legs, or they're just not prepared, there's no reason this defensive line for Georgia shouldn't dominate Florida like they did against Texas. There's just no reason. We've seen Florida struggle against Texas A&M and Miami, two teams that have similar big bodies on the defensive line, and they just got dominated. So unless Georgia just kind of wants to sleepwalk through this thing, I think that they're going to have a huge advantage on that side of the ball.
That's a good place for me to start as well. I think we kind of questioned Georgia's defense going into the Texas game because they give up 31 to a backup quarterback in Mississippi State. Every time you kind of question this Georgia defense after the first half at Alabama, all of a sudden here comes Kirby Smart's group. I think this is a spot where they kind of keep playing with that confidence off a bye after that Texas game, and they shut down two elite quarterbacks within college football. I think they handle Lagway, force him into a few turnovers, and end up rolling this game. But it will be close for a while. I think if you're on the Florida side of things, you're just hoping for those crazy rivalry-style things to happen. Tip balls off a helmet, deflected for a 75-yard touchdown. Stuff like that is what you're praying for Florida, and it's too much to hang my hat on. So I like the Dogs in this spot. What about you, JP?
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick with mine. Like, this is the start of the back end of the schedule. We looked at Florida preseason. Like, this is disgusting. And I think Florida has found a way to like win the games they need to put themselves in a decent spot to get bowl eligible. But the problem is that the defensive numbers that look really, really good are against teams that usually, or that had been sputtering offensively or just aren't good offensively. Like good numbers against UCF. They played Tennessee, who was absolutely atrocious for 2 or 3 weeks straight offensively. A&M put up 33. Miami put up 41. Mississippi State even got 28. Like, I just think there's a difference between the numbers and what Florida's actually showing you defensively. It's not a bad defensive unit, but it's one that's, I think the numbers lied to you a little bit. But the Georgia side, like, let's get the run game going a little bit. It got a little more going against Texas, but it hasn't been effective. Like, offensively, I think they're ranking around the 90s in yards a rush. They're 4.5 yards per carry. Like, that's not great. Florida's given up just under 4. I just think there's too much Georgia offensively. If we can get Carson Beck to stop making bad decisions and throwing picks that make no sense, I think they'll be just fine. But this is a continue to roll spot for Georgia for me. Like, this is get off the bye, get back in a groove, put yourself in a good spot because you have some bigger games coming later in the year that are really going to matter. So 16.5 makes sense for me. Maybe
kick us off, JP. Go round table style. Who wins? Who covers? You kick us off.
Yeah, I'll take Georgia here. I'll go 34. Like 17. That's like right at 17, and it's boring. It's chalk, but I'll go Georgia here. I just think there's too much offensively, and I don't think the numbers quite tell you the story for Florida's defense.
I talked about the defense. I also want to give credit where credit's due. Georgia's offense has also improved. They've also been scoring more consistently. They put up 41 in the game. They gave up 31. That's all you need. I think they score a decent chunk here. You're going to have a very similar style to what Florida opened up the year with and got absolutely hammered by a Miami team that didn't care where they were at. I think the same score, 41-13. I like the Dogs in a neutral site rivalry game here, Jake.
Can we just get Carson Beck versus Mississippi State and not Carson Beck versus Texas or like the first half of that Alabama game?
Right.
You're going to play a much lesser defense in Florida. They've shown the ability to really move the ball on teams like that. Florida has been honestly a pretty poor defense this year, all things considering. And I see the Dogs taking care of this pretty easily. Florida hasn't shown enough to me against elite like size and athleticism on defense.
All right. With a 17-point spread, you probably aren't shocked by it, but there's a unanimous pick on the number 5 ranked Dogs. They might have moved up, but top 5 ranked Dogs over Florida in that rivalry game. Let's move it down the line. Let's go to the Big Ten. Let's talk the big noon kickoff between Ohio State and Penn State. This one is must-see television. This is a top 5 battle as well, with Penn State just in front of Ohio State at 3-4. Let's talk about this one in Happy Valley. People are pretty pissed that it's at 11 a.m. It should be a whiteout, but a great opportunity for James Franklin's squad nonetheless. JP, break this one down for us.
100%. Like, this is, again, we're playing back this old tape that we've had where Penn State's got a shot at Michigan or Ohio State, and there's short dogs to them on the road or at home, and it's just, can they get over the hump and win a game, right? Last year, we thought they had a real shot in against Michigan. I thought they matched up really well. It's not how that game turned out in Happy Valley. They had a real shot against Ohio State. Offense slowed down, made some errors. There's more hope here because I think Penn State feels like they're a better football team than they were a year ago, and things are just hitting kind of, going their way injury-wise, like, as that sounds bad, but like Ohio State has some issues at left tackle. They have some offensive line issues. I think Latham Ransom was just confirmed to play this weekend on the defensive side of the ball, but Ohio State is kind of, in the spot where they have some real issues with the offensive line that's not real depth driven, and a good Penn State team that's got a really, really good front four. So I think there's issues there. They also feel with or without Drew Aller, they can score and they can move the football. And I don't know, that confidence level, like what it truly is, or if they're just telling themselves that. But I'm kind of confident on Penn State. But I feel like I'm really comfortable with who Ohio State is as a team and what they've shown. So if you're Ohio State, stay within yourself. Don't turn it over. Make sure that, Will Howard has a chance to win this game for you, just within the system and not through the air, throwing balls downfield, because they have been able to stretch the field with just the elite talent they have at receiver, and the run game has been good. But we need to make sure that it's one of the trenches, is as much as you can say that, like, this game is, because if injuries really cause problems and the run game stifled and Will Howard has to throw the ball 45, 50 times, I'm not loving it as much for the Buckeyes. Penn State wise, like, do you have the receivers to really make things, hurt? Does Denzel Burke, like, look at what he did against Oregon and the struggles he had against elite receiver talent. Does Penn State have that same threat? I would say no, but they have more of a unique skill set in what they're going to do to an offense or to a defense with the run game, with the scheme that they have and have provided over the last couple of weeks. So I think Penn State's felt as good in this game as they have in the last couple of years. And I think Ohio State is kind of still, I think their fans are less worried about it than maybe the national media is making it out to be. And maybe that's them being wrong there.
I think that's a good way to break it down. I think the matchup for me to watch in this one is Ohio State's offensive line, who sustained a couple of injuries, against Penn State's defensive front. If Penn State can win that battle, you saw the struggles Nebraska gave Ohio State last week with that same issue. They couldn't run the ball effectively. Ohio State, Judkins and Henderson combined for like 2.5 yards a carry. If they get into a similar spot on the road in Happy Valley, they're going to find a lot of trouble throughout the entire game. Because you look at the defensive front for Penn State, and they have some of the best players in the country. You got Carter. You got Durant if he plays. Those guys, if they control the game, they're going to make a lot of it fall on Will Howard's shoulders, and we've seen him make his mistakes. If Penn State can force a couple of turnovers like they did last week at Wisconsin, they're going to find themselves in a really good spot. I feel like I agree with JP. This is a really good feeling, again, for Penn State to finally get over that hump, get the win in this matchup, and maybe give yourself a shot at the Big Ten title. Jake.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned that. It's like JP said, Ohio State feels confident and
He's obsessed.
I am obsessed. Ohio State feels confident in who they are. I think that was true until Parks, like you mentioned. What we saw last week, the offensive line losing both of their tackles, is something I don't know if we've seen a weakness in Ohio State as alarming as it showed last Saturday. And while I think Nebraska has some dudes, especially on the interior defensive line, Penn State is twice as much. I mean, this is a top 3 defensive line in America, in my opinion, and it starts on the edges. I think you're going to know, like in the first 10 minutes of the game, how it's going to go. If Ohio State can run the ball, you're going to take those 4 points and you're going to feel good about it. If they can't, it's going to be really interesting. We can talk about Penn State's inabilities offensively and how basically Drew Aller couldn't make plays for them last year, which cost them the game. Look at the Nebraska tape. Nebraska couldn't convert in the red zone. I'm sorry to kind of, rehash it again for you, Parks, but their inability to not convert in the red zone, I thought lost them the game because, quite frankly, they were a 30-point underdog, but they had that game in their hands and they just needed to get touchdowns instead of field goals or just no points in general. I think that's what it comes down to.
All right. That's a good way to break that down. Reese, if you can, give us a few thoughts on this matchup, Ohio State, Penn State.
I mean, couple points. This is one where you look at it and it's always, can Penn State get over the hump? And every single year you try to talk yourself into the same conversation and you want them to do it. I don't think they do it. You still like it's in Happy Valley. You want to do all these things, but it's Ohio State, man. I think Penn State has the one win in the last 10 years against them.
1-9.
I really want
1-9.
Yeah.
James Franklin is.
You really want him to do it, like James. You're a good coach, man, but like it's just the same spot every year. It's like the Cowboys, kick ass all year, but you're going to go to the playoffs. You're going to be ass, and you're going to like get yourself up in the train. This is that game again where Penn State, they're like, this is the year we're building up to it, and we're going to play Ohio State, and the same shit happens, and we do a good repeat. Because you talk about it too, this Ohio State team, like Will Howard, like we saw him have his issues against Oregon, but we forget. I mean, when this guy was younger, against TCU in that Big 12 title game, like. The guy led this team to Big 12 titles. Like the guy can play. The guy's playing in big moments. He's still a good quarterback, and helping him out this way too. You got Ryan Day and Brian Kelly as your head coach and your offensive coordinator. So I think they know they have some issues with the line.
Chip Kelly.
They might be trying to Chip Kelly. My bad. We're only human.
I got you. I'm here to help.
We're only human. But it's like they know those things. So they might try to scheme up some things, get the ball out of Will Howard's hands a little bit quicker. Maybe set up some draws, some screenplays, whatever the hell it might be. Like going in, these guys are on the roster as well as anybody else in the country. So I think they'll have something gamed up plan a little bit. But the injuries are alarming too, especially when you talk about that Penn State, the line that Penn State has, because that's probably one of the best units they've seen next to that Oregon team as well too. So there's that to consider as well.
Another red flag that popped up for me, Jake, after you mentioned the Nebraska game and how much they struggled in the red zone is we did see again another defensive back for Ohio State struggle against that group in Isaiah Nair and Jamal Banks. And Devin Igmanoson was pretty bad last week for Ohio State. Got called for 3 pass interferences. I think if you have a backup quarterback in the game, we could see Aller. We're putting that out there. It's Wednesday night, so we could still see him more consistently than we think. But I think if you're going to throw the ball with your running quarterback, that's going to be your target. Try and draw some penalties, really slow the game down and create a lot of time management and keep that offense off the field with Jeremiah Smith, who's probably going to score again. So it should be an interesting matchup. Let's kick it off roundtable style. Final thoughts. Who wins? Who covers? Jake.
Like I said, James Franklin is 1-9 versus Ohio State. I believe Ryan Day is 1-6 versus top 5 teams. I think it's really hard to replace tackles in a week span. I don't think that's something you can just fix overnight. It's been a weird college football season. I'm going to take the team with points at home. I think Penn State gets it done, or I definitely see them losing this one like 13-10 in just gut-wrenching fashion because the offense can't get moving, which is fine because then I'll cover.
I think if Penn State wants to actually win this game, they'll either need to make a huge play on special teams, block a punt, block a kick, something like that, or force 2 turnovers. Do I think that can happen? No. I think Ryan Day's squad will be ready to go. Turn around after the Nebraska game when people are kind of hyping up Penn State after the performance Ohio State put up last week. And I think Ohio State covers the number on the road and continues rolling down the Big Ten slate.
That was a Pat McAfee change
I
of
love
pick
that.
right there.
I love that.
You're like, Penn State looks really, really good. I'm going to go with Ohio State.
Yeah, I had to do it. I just think that there's going to be a turning point for Ryan Day. I still think he's a good coach. He only has the narrative that he does because he's at Ohio State. And this is going to be the win that finally maybe gets people settling down a little bit. And I'm going to go with the stats here and say 1-10 instead of 1-9 on James Franklin.
If they get this done, he's not going to like cry in the post-game interview, right? Again,
No,
he's
dude,
not.
I don't know if you can blame him.
We're not going to be doing that again. Really?
I hope not.
He's still a 4-point favorite, and he's going to be crying like they were a 14-point underdog in this one. I'm talking about Ryan Day.
More.
If you think
I'm familiar with who you're speaking about, but I've also seen coaches cry after beating like 1-2 Nebraska. So it's not like,
I'm just
emotional.
We don't
take the media heat. We are the media that is giving the heat. They take the media heat. So I can't really blame a guy for shedding a tear after a big win. Maybe we'll call it Lou Holtz, wherever that old bastard is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, JP, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ohio State here. I've been tempted to take Penn State, and I think there's a lot of reasons to take them in the number as a home dog. But I think even if Ohio State struggles in the run game a little bit here, I think they can supplement it elsewhere with just game changers on the outside. I think if it's the ball, maybe it's not deep shots, maybe it's in and out of Howard's hands quick and easy and to all the playmakers, and that's how they stretch the field is just quick passes. I think that's more confidence in that than I am in this Penn State offense just lighting the world on fire. So I'll go Ohio State again.
All right, 2 on Ohio State. Reese, are we going to have a split or are you going 3-1 here?
Never. I'm not going to doubt the Buckeyes in this spot.
Yeah,
1-9.
we love
1-9 versus 1-6. I think 1-9 speaks a hell of a lot louder than 1-6. Right? Because just give me Ohio State. Don't doubt it. Just book it. Ohio State's going to win. They're going to cover.
Ryan Day says it's Ohio versus the world. It's Jake versus the world this week. That's exactly what it is.
I think Franklin has a very similar record with AP top 10 teams, just like Ryan Day's 1-5. But we'll see who can make up for it this weekend. I think it's a huge benefit as well for Ohio State getting this game at 11 a.m. instead of a night game in the whiteout energy or whatever the hell they want to call it, like Brett Bielema says. But it's a huge benefit to be playing in the morning there if you're Ohio State. All right, let's go to the Big 12. Let's talk a little bit on the top 10 Cyclones, or maybe they're just outside of it at 11.
Tied at 11.
They love talking about that. But Texas Tech heads to Jack Trice Stadium this weekend to play the top 15 Cyclones, who are looking for a college football playoff berth. Texas Tech had talent, has also shot themselves in the foot multiple times this year. So slate's a little lighter, and we haven't gotten a chance to break down the clones on the full show. So now we've represented all fan perspectives on the main show, which we love. So we'll go to Jake first for his brief thoughts. You can also check out his full thoughts on his Iowa State fan perspective live on our YouTube right now. Give that a listen for a full breakdown with JT and Jake, our Iowa State team. But Jake, what's your general Spark Notes version for this matchup?
Well, first of all, this one, shout out to Texas Tech for letting Baylor hang 59 on them at home a couple of weeks ago. This one could have been a big game. Like, this could have been a top 25 Texas Tech team coming to town. Should have won last week against TCU. That one was even worse in brutal fashion. The reason I wanted to highlight this one feels like the Big 12 game of the week, and nobody ever wants to talk about any Big 12 games and their big game breakdowns. So I figured we might as well highlight it a little bit. I think while I trust Iowa State coming off of the bye against, I'm assuming Baron Morton's going to play at this point from everything that I have seen on Twitter and things like that. I think Texas Tech has the athletes offensively to still keep up in this. I mean, you saw what UCF did. Now they have a different play style. Ja'Curry Brown's a lot more, he puts a lot more vulnerable spot on Iowa State's defense with his speed and size. That was the quarterback of UCF than maybe Baron Morton does. But I still think you got Taj Brooks. I think those receivers are still elite. And if things just come out slow at 2:30 on Saturday with maybe some weird weather, this one could be interesting. But we'll have to see how Iowa State responds and maybe gets healthier after they just got back from the bye.
Let's go down to the world's biggest Cyclone fan and JP, who predicted a 12-0 undefeated season. What do you think, JP?
12-0. It's the rush offense versus the rush defense here. Iowa State's really struggled against the run this year. And it's not just because of injuries. I feel like they've also got some issues just in the interior and how things are playing out. But I think yeah, Texas Tech's good on the exterior, but Iowa State's been really good at the secondary. So like I'm not as worried about that matchup as maybe others are, because they can sit on the pass if they can't get the run going. If you're Texas Tech, right? Like that's when the problem starts. If the run game really gets going for the Red Raiders, now this secondary stressed out a little bit more, having to come down and play the wrong, and now the elite talent on the outside for Tech causes problems. But I'm worried that that's not going to be the case with Iowa State understanding what they really need to do this week. Just Texas Tech defensively is abysmal. Like I'm not sure how we went so far backwards in this Joey McGuire era, but like we've gotten really bad, and it's not.
They started as a good defense his first year.
That's what I'm saying. Like it makes no sense, and you have all those connections within the state, and it's gotten that bad because it's not just a scheme issue. It's a talent issue. There's talent issues everywhere. And Rocco's not a guy who's going to beat himself. If you were going to get him from Rocco beating himself, it had to happen against UCF, because it's weird. Like one was a little fluky. One of them was probably never should have been thrown in the first place. Nonetheless, right? Like that's when you probably should have got him. He's not going to turn it over a ton. Now, I think there's just an opportunity for Iowa State to slow this thing down and play their identity. I don't really assume that they're going to just try to stretch things out and get fancy in the run game and get fancy in the pass game. It's going to be in and out of Rocco's hands. It's going to be a good run game, supplemented with the play action, pass it in some spots. Like it's just going to be simple, vanilla, easy, and Iowa State should have a chance to win this one pretty easy.
That's where I see it as well. I think it's interesting you mentioned the turnovers from Rocco Beck against UCF. I think if it's very similar to my breakdown of Georgia and Florida, I think if you're Texas Tech, you need those mistakes to stay in this one defensively, because like you need a pick six here and there. Don't fumble it going into the end zone. But if you get that, then you kind of get yourself in a sticky situation on the road against a top 15 team. But if you don't, I think I agree, JP. I think they can finally slow it down. Use Sama. I mean, we haven't talked about him much, or Jake has on his show, but Carson Hansen's been great for this Iowa State team on the back half, broken off some runs the last couple of weeks. If they can settle the game down, keep Texas Tech's offense off the field, I don't think they can do enough on the defensive side of the ball with Rocco Becht and how smooth and good he's been this year. No sophomore slump, that I think the Clones roll and cover the number at home. I think it's a good spot for Iowa State, and Texas Tech, just like UCF, should have been a good game for Iowa State on their schedule, and has just kind of shot themselves in the foot enough to make it not as exciting. Reese.
Yeah, back-to-back losses to Baylor and then TCU. Like the defense is definitely what's the Achilles heel of this football team. Offense, you got Morton, who's only got three interceptions, 17 touchdowns, thrown for over 2,000 yards. So, guy's a good quarterback, and Taj Brooks is 75 yards off of 1,000 8 games into the season. It's like this is a Texas Tech team with athletes, and they know what they're doing over there. Just that defense, I think, is the issue. You got Rocco back to the other side, Matt Campbell. Just turn over the ball a whole lot. They take care of it. They know what they're doing with it. Getting this game in Jack Trice too. I just think, just like what Parker said, it's a good spot for the Clones. Texas Tech is kind of stumbling at this moment. You know, you come off the back-to-back losses, and then when you play Colorado next week as well too, who has one of the higher-powered offenses in this conference too. So defense has got to do something here to make a stand. If they got to find a way to force two turnovers, keep themselves in this game. Because if Iowa State's going to keep the ball and slow it down like they do, and just keep it out of that offense's hands, I just don't know what Texas Tech is going to have to be able to keep them around in this ball game that often. So defense has got to be big here. We just haven't seen it yet, so that's why you just lean Clones in this spot.
All right, roundtable style. Reese, you kick us off. Who wins? Who covers? What's the score?
I'll take Iowa State's going to win this one. They're going to cover it. I'll take like a 34-20.
Math.
Okay, there's some points
cover.
there. Just barely over the cover. The number's in the right spot.
I'll take 34-17, 34-20.
We might have a based unanimous here decision, but I'm going to take Iowa State as well. I like them in this spot. I think they actually stumble on Texas Tech's offense. I think they actually take a step back this week against this Iowa State secondary. I like Iowa State to win this one pretty handily, pretty easily. About a 30-7 or 30-10 game. JP.
44-27. I'll take the Clones here. I don't think you get the stops that you need, but you trade touchdowns for field goals, and that makes all the difference. Now, this is bearing the weather. Like, real possibility it's just raining all day in Ames, and that just
it's gone down a little bit. The rain possibility. It's down to like
Midwest,
60%.
It's the Midwest. We have no idea until 45 minutes before kickoff, and even that might be too far out to actually know.
Change.
It's just how it is, Mother Nature. But all right, Jake, give us your score prediction. It doesn't have to match the show, but it probably should for branding.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're going to put the unanimous pick on my Cyclones. But Iowa State has covered 5 of the last 6 outside of UCF last week. So we'll just, if you're a bettor, just keep rolling with them. The clones have been covering the number decently this year. So, yep, I'll take Iowa State.
All right, there it is. Iowa State, the unanimous decision from the Play the Fight Song crew. Let's go to the ACC to finish tonight's show. Let's cover 2 games. Let's lead it off with Clemson and Louisville. This one should be a hell of a battle. Finally, Clemson gets some competition on their schedule after week 1. They've just been dismantling team. Cade Klubnik's been the guy we want him to be. Let's break this one down. Jake, do it for us.
Yeah, if we want to keep things short for the rest of the show, like, I'm good with this one. I really like Clemson. I like Clemson a lot. Clemson's been a covering machine. Like offensively, they've just been really, really good since Georgia. Phil Maffa has been underrated, top 5-10 running back in college football this season. And I just haven't seen enough from Louisville against like good competition to give me confidence for them on the road this week. What? You gave up 52 to Miami. You couldn't get
one
a
score
stop,
game.
And then you went on the
SMU,
road.
1 score game. Notre Dame, 1 score game.
Yeah, how about that Notre Dame game? That was
lost by 7. They shot them.
Those are all like, I feel like
themselves
late
in the
garbage time.
But they're in that game. They're competing in all those games, Jake.
They were down 20 points to Boston College a week ago.
Yeah,
they can't put a consistent 4 quarters together. Yeah. And I think that, Colin Lacey goes out. I know he barely played this season, but now you're basically down to Ja'Cory Brooks at receiver, maybe Chris Bell. I mean, we'll see. They gave up 200 yards to Miami, and they rushed for 6 yards per carry. I kind of see Phil Maffa, Cade Klubnik having the same success running the football. Only thing that would concern me is Clemson's given up some backdoor covers this year if you're just looking at the line. But other than that, I really like Clemson at home.
I do as well. I think we got to give some flowers that maybe were taken away early in the season. Cade Klubnik's a guy that a lot of people wrote off after week 1 yet again, and it's a guy that we've had conversations about in the preseason. When I previewed him, I talked about how good he could be if he wasn't in the national spotlight. And the way Clemson's been dismantling teams and just kind of going under the radar now with the new look ACC against the power conferences in the Big Ten and SEC, he's just been that guy finally. I mean, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, nearing the 2,000-yard mark. I think he obviously gets there in this game. He rolls again. Dabo's got those guys playing good ball, and they're going to compete for the ACC at the end of the year again. It's the Clemson that we all were finally waiting for, and I think this is a good coming out party to, hey, we're still here, and we're still backhanding teams across this conference. I like the Tigers. JP, tell us about the other side, because I know you got some Louisville in you.
Yeah, he's a de facto.
But it's just that, like, we've talked about this every time we've broken down. Like, they've been in every game that's a big game for them, right? And they've had a chance to win all of those games, right? So it's not like they haven't been playing well in those spots, but they've needed something to go their way, and nothing's gone their way. This is just not a good spot for them, right? 6:30 at night against a good team in Clemson that's feeling good about themselves. They're red hot. You're Louisville playing like 6 or 7 straight games. You've played a couple tough ones already. I just don't think the match fits right now. Like, this isn't the one that Louisville goes and gets, and that's the worry. But I think they'll have a chance to put up some points. It's just how much gas in the tank do they have?
Yeah, that line is in a little bit of a greasy spot. Reese, any thoughts on this matchup?
I mean, you look at Tyler Shook and their side, experienced quarterback. Guys played in big football games. This isn't the Death Valley; it's a Death Valley. I'm not giving them credit enough for that.
The Death Valley.
But yeah, you do. I mean, it's Dabo Swinney, and this offense has looked like as good as they have all year. That dismantling we talked about with Georgia, it's just a thing in everybody's mind. But this is a team that's building into something big. I think with this season, they're going to find a way to get themselves title at the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if Louisville covers this number, but I just think it's a spot where you guys all hit the nail on the head too. I think what you talk about with this Clemson team, it's just they got a lot going on. This Louisville team, they've been in football games, but they haven't been a way to put 4 quarters together to win themselves a football game. So I'm just going to lean Dabo Swinney in this spot and trust what this team has been doing so far.
Come on, Dave.
And trust more.
All right, Reese, quickly give us your thoughts. Who wins? Who covers?
Give me Clemson to win, but I'm going to take Louisville to cover. Give me like 28-20.
Might have just played hero for the group. I love that because give me Clemson to win and cover at home. I think this is the coming out party. So I think they put themselves back on the national spotlight. Obviously, they're still there rankings wise, but nobody's really watched Clemson since then, I feel like. So this will be that moment for them. JP.
42-27 with the backdoor possibility there. Yes, I did the math to make sure that they would cover 10.5 if they scored another touchdown. So Clemson 42-27.
It's a gross spot, but a good cover from Louisville there.
42-27. The guy's just been telling me how much Louisville's been in these close games, and
I also told you I didn't like the spot. They've been playing 6 or 7 straight. Now they're going on the road at 6:30.
My week is next week.
I don't like the spot.
Yep.
I don't like the spot, Jacob.
You know what I like?
This week.
What do you like? I like Clemson minus 6.5 first half. Took that while we were just chatting here for a minute. I do see Louisville maybe getting a backdoor here, but we're putting hypothetical money on these lines in our ATS boards. So I will take the wagon that is the Clemson Tigers.
No, rumor has it is that we're playing for real money. We put in a pot and then get a little trophy.
So when are you going to give me when's my trophy coming?
If there's a trophy company out there listening, let us know. Sponsor us. Send us something cool. We'll actually use it on the show. But all right, that is the matchup in the ACC. Let's go to a different matchup in the ACC. Probably one that should be talked about a little bit more. Let's talk about the undefeated Pitt Panthers at SMU. This one's at 7 p.m., probably the best 7 p.m. game out there this weekend. Pitt, although they may be undefeated and ranked higher, is a 7.5-point dog on the road here. Talk about this game, JP.
Don't play with your food if you're SMU. This is a defense I think you can get to. Eli Holstein will play. I think I heard from their doozies. So good for Pitt. That the numbers in the splits is I'm starting to hear as I look into Pitt more and hear more about on their podcast and other shows and stuff that like the in-conference splits offensively versus out-of-conference splits are a little more egregious than you expect it to be. I expect Gerald Ford Stadium to be bumping in Dallas Saturday night. I expect
all 20,000 of them.
That defense is better than you think it is. Like I'm going to say that again. Like when I covered them in the preseason, they had some dudes along the front, and they've shown that. The struggle has been in the secondary, and we talked about that too. Like giving up yards per completion, percentage of passes completed is good, but like it's because guys are taking shots, and then when they hit these shots, they're just gashing this SMU defense, and that's what Pitt does. So I think that's a big worry there. SMU, since the quarterback changed to Jennings, man, here come the ponies, man. Like they've been really good. They've had a good run game. They found a way to kind of find an identity and everything, and they've been going since that BYU game before they had made that quarterback change. So I think this is a really good spot. The line is a little strange. I guess I didn't realize that the numbers that Vegas had SMU 5 points, 6 points better than Pitt. But it feels like one that when you were looking at SMU in the preseason, it was like you may be rolling, but you'll slip up a couple times because you're not used to a schedule quite like this. I think this is one that maybe people had circled here, but I think Pitt's got a real chance to win this one as well. 7.5 doesn't feel like the correct line, but I'm also not an odds maker. So Pitt wise, like, don't turn it over, really rely on Eli Holstein to make the right decisions and beat that SMU team through the air. And then defensively, you need to get better against the pass as well, because Kevin Jennings can make plays with his legs, extend plays, and then hit open receivers. No, RJ Maryland hurts a ton for this SMU team, but the offensive line has gotten a little bit better, and they've also found a way to kind of run the ball a little bit better in the last couple of weeks. I think the Duke game last week was an anomaly.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because 6 turnovers is hard to do. That's very hard to do.
I've seen teams try to turn it over 6 times and not.
Yeah, what sticks out to me in this one is when I take a look at SMU and what did he say?
Cade McNamara.
I thought I heard that. He did alley-oop that one. But all right, when I take a look at this game, I kind of look at SMU and I see what they're throwing at you now, especially with Jennings in the mix now. But Brashard Smith's been really good for them. And when Pitt's gotten in those close games, both with Cal, both with North Carolina, they've given up over 100 yards on the ground to the back. So if they can get him going, along with the legs that we already talked about and the quarterback change at SMU, then Pitt's going to find themselves in a really tough spot. However, every time I've talked about Pitt this year, we wrote them off at the beginning of the year because they didn't play anybody. Then they get in the big game or they play in the backyard brawl. Granted, West Virginia doesn't look as good as everybody thought they were going to be. but they just keep winning these games that people are like, oh yeah, finally, here comes 7-0 Pitt. Now here comes their first loss. Eli Holstein doesn't give a shit what we say. They've still been winning. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, I like SMU in the spot to cover the number really easily. They've gotten in these close games, and Pitt's still a very talented and well-coached football team. So it could be close, but I do got to give the edge to SMU at home just because of their running ability from their quarterback and their running back, Jake.
And I've went a couple of places back and forth on this one, and it's hard to get a read, especially when you get a team who, again, I said, turned it over 6 times last week. And then on the other side, a team that forced their
still won, though. Might be one of the only teams I've ever seen in the world.
Still won. And then on the other side, a team that forced their opponent, sorry, Reese, to 5 turnovers.
I was about to just say, I'm about to go hand up JP because I actually watched my quarterback throw 5 interceptions last week against this team. So
it's just neither one of these teams are going to do either or. I don't imagine SMU turning it over 6 times, and I don't imagine Pitt getting 5 turnovers. But JP said it before, the splits offensively have been terrible. This offense has just not been able to get a rhythm going, I guess, to say the least, in Pitt. And Pitt feels battle-tested. They've had plenty of comebacks. Honestly, they shouldn't have won the Cincinnati or the West Virginia game. If you watched either of those, they were down double digits in both fourth quarters. I don't know how much you can keep this going. I like SMU and what they do offensively. I think they got 3 running backs they really like. Narduzzi's going to have to scheme something up that's going to be super chaotic, and maybe they do get 2 or 3 turnovers. That's what's going to keep them in this game. But I don't trust the offense enough to go on the road at this point.
All right, Reese, give us your breakdown.
I think you guys are all making very good arguments. The Pitt team, the comebacks you're having, that just shows resiliency. It's a Narduzzi team. Also, Narduzzi's mad last week. His offense couldn't put together something. Shut up, dude. You had 3 picks if you go back to the house. You guys are fine. Come on, Kyle. Whatever. But it's a resiliency. They've shown they can do this thing. So you are traveling on the road here. If you do find a way to get down, you never count this team out. So Holstein also, that guy, he doesn't give a shit what we say. The guy has gone into a Pitt team where not a lot of people were high on this team this year, and he's taken them to the record they have so far. You look at SMU. JB talked about the defense. It's a solid defense, and I think having that at home is going to be massive too. I lean SMU to win in this spot. I think Pitt can keep it close. If you're going to give me 7.5, you're going to give me a touchdown. I think this Pitt team, with the fight they had, they'll definitely keep within that number, but I'm going to lean SMU to win in this spot.
All right, kick it off roundtable style, JP. Your pick first, SMU Pitt. Who wins, who covers?
Yeah, I'm in the similar notion here. I think I'm high on this SMU team. I was high on them in the beginning of the year. I just think Pitt has enough to stay in this one. Let's just make it a little weird in the ACC on a Friday or on a Saturday night. So Pitt plus a 7.5 and SMU win.
All right. And a little unexpected because JP's got a little homerism for SMU too, but I'll take the other side. I think SMU finally gets it done. I'm going to try and call my shot yet again against Pitt. Maybe Eli Holstein will shut me up once and for all, because I don't think I can second guess him again. But give me SMU at home to cover this number. I think a 10-point win to a 14-point win is kind of the spot where I see it. But that offense has been rolling ever since week 1 when we started doubting SMU, and I think this is the week I can shut that off and see them in the ACC picture towards the final end of the year. Jake, sorry.
It's time to separate myself from JP on the ATS board. Got to go the opposite way here. I trust SMU in this offense. I do not trust Pitt's offense on the road. 7 and a hook is disgusting, but I will take the ponies. And shout out to the ACC. I mean, it's only appropriate. You can slot this one in on ACC Network when it's one of the only top 25 matchups of the weekend.
It's all brand, man. It's all brand.
All right, Reese. Round it out. We 2-2 splitting or 3-on-1 again?
We're 2-2 splitting. Like I said, I'm going to take SMU to win this spot, but I'm going to take Pitt to cover.
All right, there it is. The 2-2 split to wrap up the individual previews tonight. Let's go into the betting segments. But before we do, you should have already checked it out because the game already happened. Our G5 game of the week was given to Texas State and Louisiana last night. Jake and I both on Texas State. We were wrong. We're idiots, but we gave you a sweet little breakdown. So appreciate you joining the show if you're new from that crowd this week. All right, now let's go into the betting segments.
One second. Go ahead. Reese, Georgia, Florida.
Yes.
16.5.
Georgia.
Okay, nice.
Good thought there.
Don't doubt it.
It's a good spot to, if you're here, we appreciate you here. You should probably like the video. Should they
You
subscribe?
should definitely like the video. Thanks for cutting off the host. I like that too. Also, shout out to our great partner at No Rivals, shopnorivals.com, using the code PTFS at checkout on any of the premium collegiate headwear you find. JP always points this out in his fan perspective. It's a beautiful time for Christmas gifts. Plan ahead. Buy those Christmas gifts on shopnorivals.com. Use that code today. Your son, your grandson, whoever the hell's out there really wants a No Rivals cap. You doesn't matter who you pick for the team because they all look the same and they look sweet. Kentucky just added. There's more teams going live here shortly. Check those out today. Shout out No Rivals. Like the video. Hit the subscribe button right now. We're giving you a little break while I'm rambling on through the ad read. Now let's go to the betting segments. Let's kick it off with the dog's dog this week. Let's go to Jake. I feel like we haven't hit a dog in quite some time, but Jake, give us one.
Jake hit a dog last week, I think.
I did hit
I
a
just
dog
say
last
that
week.
just to piss him off. I just say that to piss him off every week.
I wish I need to go back and get my record. It has
Got
been
him.
pretty damn good this year. Yeah. I don't want to get us kicked off YouTube, so I won't play the song. But if I were to play the song, what song do you think I would play? What song would you guess?
Hopefully a fight song, branding
Obama.
wise, but why the Oh yeah. Okay. That's a good guess.
not Obama. Good call though, JP. That was a good
Nah.
guess. No,
I mean,
they're not
there's
underdogs this week.
Name one
Park,
song in the
Petty.
history of the world.
We're getting closer, Reese. We're getting closer. Home team. This is what they play at their we're staying in the SEC. Come on, we're getting there. Somebody in the comments
God.
got us now.
South Carolina, Sandstorm.
Bingo. Give me the +2.5. Give me the Gamecocks.
Cocktober's
I know-
over those shapes.
No. We're giving this pick in Cocktober. Yes, the game will
That's
be
not how
played
that
in
counts.
November,
That's not how that works.
but it
I
is
don't think that
still
works that way.
Cocktober
That's
when
what
I'm
I
giving
thought
this pick.
too.
So
All right.
give me South Carolina 2.5.
South Carolina to lead off the dog's dog. JP, who you got?
All right, Vegas. I'll bite. Give me Illinois again.
I'm on that too. Fuck Vegas and
I'll
fuck that
bite.
line.
I'll bite.
I'll fucking bite too. No,
Hey,
I-
I've been on Illinois in these spots, and I'm going to stay on it because I don't think Minnesota's a good football team.
I was told by this group to stay away from stinky, stupid. Why is that line there? I already beat it once this year. I'm beating it again with Luke Altmaier and Brett Bielema this weekend.
Damn.
Fuck Minnesota. They're overachieving in the week that they get kicked back down to earth by a well-coached football team.
That's a play this weekend. I did not realize they're 3-point underdogs. We're
Fucking
going
I'll
Illinois. Illinois
Yeah.
money line. Just put it in on my
All right.
I'm like the
anonymous
bat
At home,
just
by
been
the way.
sitting by your
Yep, at
by the
home.
reel, just like
Illinois
You know
solid.
what?
Like
Fuck it.
they play these teams like Minnesota.
That's an overreaction to Oregon. That's
Yeah,
Vegas's
absolutely.
computer's overreaction to Oregon, 100%. But Reese, who
3-point
you
home
got
dog.
on the dog's dog?
I'm sticking to the SEC too. Number and the team came up with a win last week, but this team also played a hell of a football game last week. How about Vanderbilt +7 going to War Eagle?
That's a
I
good
like
pick.
that one. I'll take
Gross.
that. I mean, this team has this offense is averaging 32 points a game. Clark Lee, like this team has played good football all year. Your losses are to Texas, Missouri in double overtime, and Georgia State kind of sticks in there too. But again, those losses are all only by one score. This Auburn team, Hugh Freeze, it's a good football team, but again, Diego Pavia, SEC killer. Trust him to go in there and wreck some more stuff for these guys. So give me Vanderbilt in the spot +7.
I also have another underdog. I took this a couple of days ago.
I wanted to
No,
make it
it's
my
not
best bet.
Yeah,
it's not
well,
my dog's dog. But what do you think it is? You had to guess.
I mean,
If we're
it's, why are we guessing all your picks this week?
No
Just
shit.
tell us
It's
your fucking
just
pick.
fun.
This is the show.
Kentucky.
you're SEC. You're close. What's another one? We feel like we've named them all. You're missing one more.
Just tell the
Yeah.
show, Jake.
Big Suey.
Big Suey.
Mike
Razorbacks.
etiquette out the window.
And then we wonder why his mic cuts out all the time. He's like, this won't work. Well, you're stuck in on it.
Screaming.
So that's a big problem. But all right, let's go to best bets. That is the dog's dog. JP, you will lead us off with your best bet of the weekend.
I'm going to give you one, and then I have one for later that I love. Sam Levitt's back. Poke suck. Give me the Devils.
Ooh, even in the alternate uniforms?
Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I
the
have
alternate
this-
uniforms today. What'd you think of those, JP?
Quick, they're fine.
It's a little much, I think,
I
even
don't
for
like-
me, which is crazy.
I don't like how they do. If you're gonna do throwback, go all the way back. don't do your modern jersey and pants.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
With just do what they like. Do the Illinois thing. Do like Iowa State's Ames uniform. Like just go all in. Don't do both.
All right.
Can't have
I'm going to
both.
get Jake level greasy with this best bet this weekend. My best bet hit last weekend with Colorado when I took a rival. So this one, I'm going to go to the G5 and give me the over at 61.5, Memphis and UTSA. Memphis can't stop anybody. UTSA does somehow still have some offensive talent lingering out there, but it doesn't matter if they have it or not. Memphis literally can't stop anybody that has a pulse. So I think Seth Hannigan and his group will still get his, but they'll give up enough to get that over. So I like over 61.5 in that matchup. Jake.
Yeah, I'll just throw what I have. I think Clemson first half -6.5 against Louisville. There's
First
not
half
a
play.
There's first half plays crazy.
It is, and I just it's going to be it is going to be an early night. There's no games past like 9:15 Central Time, so just going to cash in early. Just enjoy the rest of my Saturday night, and we're not going to have to worry about it.
All right, Reese.
Why is screaming that play?
Round it out, Reese. Best bet of the weekend.
I'm not looking too far from home for me. It's just I've bet games in this dome, and for some reason they just can't seem to get stops when there's good teams coming in there. I'll take the over in Virginia Tech Syracuse at 53.5. Kyle's going to look to bounce back after the game last week. They're not going to slow down throwing the football. So hopefully he doesn't turn it over as much. But this defense, they've given up less than 20, I believe, once this year. And I just think Syracuse is going to have to keep scoring a lot of points if they want to win this football game. So I see this game being somewhere in the 30s to 20s. Maybe they're both going to be in the 30s. So give me the over in this game.
You got to feel really bad about it, JP, but are you throwing a principal play out there? There is an Air Force and Army game.
It is up to 41.5.
Well,
yes, I have that noted. That's
Army might
high.
score 41.5 by themselves.
That is high.
Army should absolutely drub that game. How about we get real greasy with the Pick'em in Northwestern and Purdue? That's for the ball knowers.
Give me David Braun.
White lids and Purdue. Purdue's backup's been better than Hudson Card was since they made that change. Northwestern couldn't stop anybody. They gave up 40 to Iowa.
Yeah.
So,
hey, but yeah, Sullivan, dude.
Maccabee?
JP, is Sullivan starting this week or what?
Yes.
What? Just because Kate.
I would just different now.
It's because Kate, not because of anything else. Reese, Hughes,
yes,
Vatek, underrated game. What are thoughts? What are you thinking?
Underrated game. It could be a perfectly rated game if Kyle didn't throw 3 pick sixes in the first half this week. You look at, it still lines up. Like, this offense has everything. It's just Kyle just keeps shooting himself in the foot and just game plans. He's making bad throws. Like, Ohio State fans were just absolutely creaming in their jeans last week watching this game. But if Syracuse is able to put together a game plan, Fadil Diggs on the line has been awesome. Deuce Chess on the secondary has been big. Marlo Wax. There's been guys on this defense that are solid dudes for this team. It's just, are we able to stop Kyron Jones and what they got going over there? I think Syracuse win this spot. I think Syracuse is a 4-point underdog too. Thought I'm making them my dog too in this spot. But
at home,
in the dog, I like in this spot. I think you can win this football game, but it's also a very losable spot if you're just going to have the offensive performance that you had last week, dude. LaQuint Allen. I talk about this guy all the time, but LaQuint Allen is one of the best athletes. If you watch him play, the guy can just make dudes miss.
That's my question. Is like everybody wants to crap on McCord. We don't throw the ball 65 times in one game.
Jacob,
you can.
He's down 28 before after he threw 3 picks. They had to throw the football.
Well, no,
it's not his fault they threw the ball
anyway.
They threw the ball because he sucked. Like, come on.
They threw the ball 55 times when we played Stanford home. Like, we should throw the ball 5 times against Stanford. We shouldn't have to do that. But we do.
You start that way though. Like, you start and he throws those 3 picks, and then you continue to throw the ball.
He threw 4 picks before he had 20 attempts. Like, all
right, we're getting a little choppy. JP, wrap us up with your next best bet.
This is like McDonald's Big Mac Grimace Greasy, right?
E. coli or no E. coli included?
No lettuce here. No lettuce, just the burger grease.
No. That came from the onions. Shout out Taylor Farms. Keep going.
Michigan team total under 14.5.
That's a greasy pick. I'll throw another greasy one at you. Well,
like
why is Indiana not a 10-point favorite on the road at Michigan State?
Be careful, Indiana. Be careful.
Oh, God. Why, Jordan?
Why? Go ahead, JP.
You just got a lot of hype, and then you got some big games coming up. You got to get through this one on the road.
Jordan,
I'm saying.
I really like that under pick out of Michigan.
14.5.
That reminds me of the Alabama-Mizzou one last week. I don't know why I did not take team under with Missouri. And before Brady Cook was announced he was out, it was like 16.5. Just
God, Pie looked bad.
It's too high.
All right, JP, I'll take it. You twisted my arm.
All right, closing us out. Fun one. Dark mode Vols 16.5 at home against Kentucky. They just berated them last time they played in the All Blacks at home at night against Kentucky. So take that again. But with that, that wraps up the Week 10 preview. Like, comment, subscribe on all of our YouTube content. Hit the like button right now, just as you close out the video. JP, where should they shop?
ShopNoRivals.com. Premium hats, premium headwear. Great looking stuff.
And the code is?
PTFS. That's Play the Fight Song, abbreviated PTFS.
That's right. Jake always tries to do the ... and he never hits it right. That's correct. That is correct. PTFS at checkout at shopnorivals.com. Shout out to our great partners at No Rivals. Jake, take us away.
See you next time. Play it.